Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Welcome to part 3 of the multi-day trip planning podcast. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the kind of kit you should be wearing and taking with you, and hopefully you'll find it useful. If you haven't listened to the other 2 podcasts already, doesn't matter. Just listen to this, it's fine. We're joined again by Greg Villalobos and Paul Jennings. Sit back, relax, and get onto Google so you can do some shopping.
Was there one big thing that you feel like you left out from last week's chat?
Well, I got an irate message from Pete, who was enraged that you would suggest wearing an open face helmet without considering the safety factors.
Really?
No, not really. He wasn't enraged. He's just said it's something you should.
Is he one of those people that uses 3 little words and takes flares out with him in case something goes wrong?
Are you saying that's wrong? Because I've got some in my kit bag.
Something hit me after we'd finished last week, which was my big luxury in a tent, which is the ensuite facilities.
The wide-necked ensuite.
The wide-necked fridge milkshake bottle.
Tents are on the list.
Come back to that then, maybe.
Today, by popular request, demand even, we're going to talk about kit. So the sort of stuff you wear, the sort of stuff that it's taken me 16 years to find some kit that I'm kind of happy with. And I think it's still constantly evolving as new stuff comes out. Even Noel's just bought a new helmet, which I'm sure he'll tell us all about and the reasons for buying it. I'm going to tell you about my helmet first. I've got... Children.
You've got quite a small one, haven't you?
No, mine's extra large. I've got a very big head. So I wear a flip front helmet, and mine's a K-Berg Tormax, which is basically the old Duke with a visor and a peak. It's quite heavy, and it's very basic, and it's quite cheap. It's about £150 you can get them for. So 2 things for me. It's got a flip front, which I really like, because it doesn't mean that I have to keep taking my glasses on and off. And also, it's got a visor and an internal sun visor, because I just never got on with goggles. My glasses were always steaming up, or the goggles were steaming up. And then finally, it's got a Sharp rating of 5, which is the highest rating Sharp gives to a helmet, which means it's been tested and it's pretty safe. And those are the reasons I have chosen that helmet.
Is it sort of a do-it-all helmet for you? If you went on a big road ride, would you wear that helmet? Or do you have another helmet for that?
I do have an old one without the visor on it, but this is my do-it-all helmet. I wear it on the road and I wear it off-road. And I fairly religiously change my helmets every 5 years as well.
And what colour is it? Is that important?
It's white. From a safety perspective, they always tell you to wear a white helmet because it's more visible. I think it kind of makes sense because the rest of the kit you wear is inevitably dark with reflective bits on it.
White goes with everything, doesn't it? So always go with whatever you've got.
Yeah, pretty much.
Apart from, what I have realised is white helmets fucking shit when you're the photographer taking photos of people with white helmets on against cloudy skies, because the head just disappears into the sky. So if I had a choice, I would be the only one wearing a white helmet, because no one takes photos of me. And I would have everyone else in something other than a white helmet. But it's very niche.
And slightly selfish. So, Noel, you are a proponent of the open face helmet.
Well, yeah, okay. But my perfect helmet would be the old Schubert J1, I think it was called, which was like a Bell helmet. It looked like a Bell open face helmet, and it had a metal... Do you remember this, Paul? Do you ever see this helmet?
No, I'm not of that ilk.
It had a metal bar as a chin guard, but it was just a little thin round bar that just came round by your chin, so you barely saw it.
Like that the kicker in an American football
like
that, from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, so it's perfect. But that disappeared, and then in about 2012, HJC brought out this lovely helmet with a removable chin guard. So I bought one of those in 2012, and about 3 weeks ago, I noticed that it was starting to literally perish around the chin guard. So I was forced to buy another one, which is why I've recently bought the closest thing to it, which is a Nolan helmet with another removable chin guard. So I generally set off with a chin guard on, and then as soon as I'm on a track doing 20 miles an hour, take it off.
Yeah, that's perfect. I just still question because I don't think I would ever wear an open face helmet.
I wear an open face helmet when I'm riding my Royal Enfield Bullet. It's a very good open face helmet. It's a Davida. And I wouldn't wear an open face if I was on a big fast bike doing crazy speeds and doing long distances, but for Sunday bimbles and slow speed stuff, I quite like it.
But then if a car hits you at 30 miles an hour, that's still going to hurt.
Yeah, but then riding a motorbike is inherently risky, isn't it? And yes, you should mitigate it, all the risks all the time, but live a little bit.
I keep the chin guard on. Generally riding to a trail. If I'm riding with other people, I'll often even ride the trails with the chin guard on because I'm trying to keep up with other people. But generally by myself and on slow trails, it's a completely different experience, I think, with an open face helmet on. It feels horrible putting the chin guard back on again.
Pretty much everything we're going to talk about on this episode is about the level of risk that you're prepared to take.
So Clive, how many injuries have you had riding your trail motorbike?
1.
How many injuries have you had riding your non-motorized trail bicycle?
Several.
I'm digging that question.
Yeah, good question. And how many on my road bike? 1.
So, you know, there's something to be said there, really. Like, do you, you're very all the gear all the time on your motorcycle, and how does that compare to your attitude to the far safer speed bicycle?
It's a very, very good point. Obviously, you're in Lycra, baggy shorts, whatever you want to wear, with absolutely no safety gear on, apart from a fairly rubbish helmet. And, you know, I raced bicycles as a youngster. So, you know, you would literally be tearing through country lanes at 40, sometimes as much as 50 miles an hour, rubbing shoulders with people in Lycra. And back in those days, the old hairnet leather helmets as well.
I have got full face mountain biking helmets, which I will wear on a downhill day when you get in a minibus and they take you to the top and you throw yourself back down the mountain. But all the other time, it's just a regular open face helmet. And I've destroyed many of those. So, yeah, in theory, we should be wearing full face helmets all the time.
I'm just trying to make the point that it's about perception of risk as opposed to actual risk. And it's a choice, isn't it? Look, you never know when someone's going to pull out in front of you on a bicycle or a motorbike. Chances on a motorbike, you might be going faster. But yeah, it's just about attitude to risk, really. And you can ride to minimize the chances of injury, and you can ride to not minimize the chances of injury, you know?
My rule, I always say to myself, or my little piece of advice I always give to myself when I'm on my motorbike, if somebody nearly pulls out in front of you or something comes round the corner and you're not expecting it, I always tell myself, there will be another one, whether it's a tractor or a horse or a bus or whatever, or somebody that pulls out and didn't see you. I always tell myself there will be another one. And quite often, the bloody well is as well. So that first one to me is the warning shot, and the second one is the one that's going to do you damage. And
I don't know what the answer is, really.
Well, the answer is to assess your own risk. And if you like an open-face helmet, but you're worried that it's a bit dangerous all the time, get one with a removable chin guard and take it on and off as you go.
Well, surely the whole point of a flip-up is it is a bit of the best of both worlds, isn't it?
It is, but I would always be a bit nervous about riding with a flip-up, and I've done this loads of times, but when you ride with the flip-up helmet flipped up, you always feel that if you do fall with it like that, there's a heck of a lot of leverage go above your head.
And that's the reason why Arai helmets are always that very round shape, and they don't make flip-up helmet, because it's that torsion, the twisting that any obstruction on your helmet has that will make your neck and your head spin and cause more damage. So you're right, we all should be wearing Arai.
I wear flip-up, and it's largely because I want to put my camera to my eye, and I want the safety of having the chin down as and when. But it's really handy to have the protection when you need it, and then get off the bike, flip it up, take your photos. If you're going slowly or you come to stop and there's people on the trail, you can pull it up and talk to people. Yeah.
It also comes down to what fits you best. Don't forget that. And I do wear an Arai 99% of the time. Yes, I've got the open face on my Bullet, but 99% of the time I'm wearing an Arai, whether it's a tour cross with the peak or the Chaser on a road bike, an outright road bike. And I wear an Arai because, one, it's a brand I trust, but also with the noggin I've got, it's the only brand that fits me properly. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important factor.
So how many helmets does everyone own and use?
I've got 3 that are current. So I've got my white Tormax. I've got a orange and black Duke without the peak, which is still a flip up, and I have my old showy Hornet, which is a non-flip up. That's probably past its sell by date, actually.
I'm going to give Clive his next segue by saying I have got my Davida open face helmet, I've got my Arai Chaser road helmet, and I've got 2 tour crosses. My old one, which I use on Welsh trails when it's really snotty and you don't want to destroy your helmet by getting it full of mud. And my new tour, well, a couple of years old tour cross, which is if I'm going on a tour or a week-long trip and I want to put my head in a nice place. And that's the one, here comes the segue, with the comms kit mounted onto it.
Thank you. We are going to get Greg's answer first. What have you got, Greg?
I've got a Schubert C1, I think it is. Or is it an E1? One of the other, the flip-up adventure one. And that's my kind of use all the time one. And then I've got a Climb Krios. And the Schubert and the Climb Krios have both got centers in them. The Krios has got like a dark visor on. It's quite good for taking photos in. But I've got quite a small head and the helmet sizes are quite big. Quite often when they fit for a small head, they just put like thicker cheek pads in. And so that helmet, that Krios is a bit big on me. It fits, but it just looks a bit big. And then I've got like a Spada Trials open face helmet. And I use that if I'm just like popping out for coffee down the road. And then I've got a Climb F5 like motocrossy style helmet that I don't really use.
Here's a question for you before we get onto the intercom things. I just want to say, when I talk about intercoms, I just want to say what a brilliant thing they are. But if any of you lived in a state in America where it didn't require the wearing of helmets, if you were just, say, popping to the local shops, would you wear a helmet on your large hog of a motorcycle?
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
Like if I get on my bicycle, I do. I mean, you kind of change your perception. You've got kids around, and they, monkey see, monkey do. So even if I'm just going out on a little tootle on my bicycle, which I would no way normally wear a helmet, I do when the kids are around because it's just to reinforce that fact that you just do it all the time, no argument. Would I? Yeah, no, I think I would. I think I would put at least my open face helmet on. Actually, I often think like seeing farmers on quad bikes these days, there's a slow changing perception. And actually, I've seen a lot more farmers wearing helmets than ever in the past.
There have been some quite high profile injuries recently. Coming from the farming community, I think people are starting to wake up to it. There will always be a hardcore that will say, no, I never have and I never will.
It's just that difference between like getting up and just shaking yourself off and not getting up. And that's all the difference was, is whether or not you had a helmet on.
No, you're in California, you're about to ride down Big Sur. Are you going to put a helmet on or not?
Yeah, probably would do. I think I do go out on my push bike sometimes without a helmet, but generally I do wear a helmet. I had a little race with my nephew on push bikes 3 or 4 years ago, and I fell off and hit my head. And it's the first time I've knocked my head since I was a tiny child, I would think. And it was a real shock as to how much it hurt, even at quite slow speed. So I think certainly after that, I wear a helmet all the time, really, yeah. And it would be embarrassing to be dribbling out the side of your mouth, wouldn't it? Because you didn't put a helmet on that day.
You're getting into the realms of it's not fair on your loved ones and those that have to care for you.
Oh, don't go there. We'd have to stop riding motorbikes completely. We don't want to do that. Yeah, we're all behaving very responsibly. It's fine. Listen, I want to talk about intercoms. Greg, you and I have the same Senna intercom. But I just wanted to say, and Noel won't get one because he's too tight, they're so good, aren't they? They make a real difference to your days out.
Yeah, there was like motorcycling before and motorcycling after. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and it's like there are incremental gains in terms of something might be a bit lighter or a bit drier or a bit faster or whatever. And they kind of, you spend your money and, you get like a bit of a better quality experience. But there's literally it's night and day. It's like there was motorcycling, trail riding with friends before intercoms and trail riding with friends after intercoms. It's just a totally different experience when you're out with someone that doesn't have an intercom and you only talk when you stop and you've got to shout at each other versus essentially just this, like what we're doing now, but on motorbikes. Fucking brilliant.
There's a practical application as well, because you can go, I need to stop for fuel, or turn left here, or ouch, I've fallen off again.
Is there a lot of conversation as you're riding along?
It's constant. and you're missing out.
But it isn't. It isn't. It's not. If you're out for like 8 hours, you wouldn't be talking for 8 hours, but you would be like,
What do you talk about?
how much of a twat Noel is for not having an intercom.
Is it day-to-day stuff, or is it specific to what is currently happening on that trail?
It's a
Yeah.
combination.
Like, I've Clive, can I just tell you about this itchy bollock that I've had for like the last 3 weeks? Like,
When we all rode together in Northumberland earlier this year, I was the only one out of the... How many of us were there riding trails? Was it 6 of us? And I was the only one without intercoms. I now have intercoms, but I haven't ridden with anybody since then, so I don't know how good it is. But I did get a sense of you were all laughing probably at me and my pink boots. But I did have a sense that I was missing out a little bit whilst everybody was riding. But I'm still got half a foot in Noel's camp of, oh, God, constantly talking when you've got your head in the helmet and listening to other people.
But the great thing is they've got an on and an off button.
and the thing is, you'll never know unless you try it. You know, honestly, the amount of faff to get them paired, I would not do it. I would not put up with that palaver if it wasn't worth it, because it is such a pain in the ass to get it working. And the only reason why you do it is because it's worth the effort.
Do you have to pair them? Do you have to pair them every single day, or once
No. Once they're paired on the trip, you just turn them on. Occasionally, it might lose a connection and you have to go again. But yeah.
And the other good thing is you can listen to music, you can take phone calls, you can get your GPS vocal instructions if that's what you like doing. The first time I had one, I was in the Alps in Switzerland, and I got a call from one of my sons, and I accidentally pressed the video call. I think maybe he video called me, and I kind of accepted the call, and he could actually just see me cruising through round the bends of the Alps, and it was like, wow, this is just fantastic.
With your fancy woman on the back seat.
God, I tell you what, if you've been married once, why would you make the same mistake again?
I love my wife.
Me too. I love your wife. She's very nice.
Boom.
Is it a lot easier with just two people, or does it get to sort of talk over each other a lot when there's more than two?
I think if you had loads of money and everyone bought the most up-to-date kit, which is probably, you're probably talking like 300-400 quid per unit, then it would just be like this. But in reality, the ones that we've got, okay, it's all like kind of line of sight. So you go over a hill and stuff like drops out, and you are constantly kind of going in and out a little bit if you get spread out and stuff like that. It's not quite as clear as this call. If one person upgrades, everyone's got to upgrade, really.
Although if you've got one person with one of the really modern units, like the one I've just got, and I've got middle of the range, not top of the range. If you've got 3 or 4 people on the old system and another 3 or 4 people on the old system, but one in the middle with the bridge system, you can connect those two groups together. Apparently,
it's bullshit, and then you've got to be in the middle all the time.
Yeah, well, then you don't have to open any gates or close any gates. Not wrong with that.
So, Noel, shall I have a word with... I was going to send a message to the current Mrs. Tom to say, get one of these for Noel for Christmas.
Yeah. I believe Greg. I think I probably will enjoy it. I'll get one for Spain. I promise.
Oh, hey.
So, anyway, that's enough from our sponsor at Senna. I'm joking. They haven't really sponsored us, but maybe they will now. But yeah, really thoroughly recommended. It makes a big difference. So my list of stuff to talk about, I've actually written it down from the head down. So the next thing I come to is a neck buff. Yeah, why wouldn't you take one?
Multifunctional, aren't they?
They are. They're good for hats.
Plan B.
In the evening.
Plan B.
Yes, absolutely. Vital for Plan B. You're never without a face mask when you've got a buff.
They're great for number 10 Christmas parties.
Yeah, also, you don't have to wear it all the time. You can just take it off and put it in your pocket if it gets too warm.
That's an easy one. Yeah.
And they make a good blindfold when you buy a red tent and go to Iceland, and it's light all through the night, and it's like wearing a pair of light-enhancing glasses. It's actually lighter in your tent than outside. So you have a blindfold with you.
You know this like whole... wear them as a hat thing. It's like
that is criminal. Yeah.
But like, if you need to keep your head warm, fine. But take it off before anyone takes a photo of you.
What have you got against wearing it as a hat?
It just looks terrible. It looks like 1990s American, like some like Mr. Motivator exercise class thing. It looks terrible, but it did come in handy when all those mozzies around on our trip. You just want to keep just a little slit where you can look out for your eyes. That's a great bit of, for radio action there, Paul.
Thanks. Just demonstrating to the...
For the viewers watching in black and white, Paul's just put a buff on his head to prove the point. Does if you got... I mean, you guys, you're all going bald, but I've got a full head of hair, so they're quite handy if your hair's, not quite right. Neck braces. I have never seen anybody wear a neck brace trail riding.
If you're wearing a neck brace trail riding, you're either going too fast or there may be something medically wrong with you, which is totally fine. But generally, neck braces are more popular in the States where people are kind of absolutely pinning it because it's socially acceptable to be out in the middle of nowhere doing that. And if you fell off in the middle of nowhere, you'd probably be quite fucked. But round here, trail riding...
I don't think I've ever seen an enduro racer on a racetrack wearing a neck brace.
I think they probably do.
Yeah. The price puts me off as much as anything. They're not cheap bits of kit, are they?
No, they're not. And I think when we got onto knee braces, the same could be said for them as well.
Yeah, that was running through my mind as well. I've tried cheap knee braces and binned them because they just rub and they're uncomfortable. I think you've got to spend a lot of money to get a comfortable knee brace.
Will wears knee braces, doesn't he? And he really likes them for the extra protection it gives you. So the deal with knee braces versus knee pads is it protects you from that kind of your knee moving the wrong way.
And a bit of twisting as well, I think.
It's the lateral forces,
Yeah, the lateral movement rather than the vertical movement. But again, really, really expensive. I don't know many people that wear them for trail or adventure riding simply because, as Paul said, they're not the most comfortable.
Unless, apparently, if you're spending £400 or £500.
Yeah, you get them fitted then, don't you? You can have them personalised if you throw enough money at them. I have 2 sets of knee pads. I've just bought a different set. So I had a big set of semi-brace ones. They weren't really braces, but they had like a plastic outer to them, which gave you some lateral movement protection, but not particularly comfortable. And I've just gone down the same route as Greg has and got some, what do they call them, force field sleeve ones with the soft 3DO or D3O armour in them. But the problem with them is they kind of slip down.
Well, it depends which ones you get. I think mine are more designed for mountain biking. Essentially, they're just like mountain bike ones that are quite thin. They've got like straps at the top, so they don't really slide down. But I'm on my knees a lot, taking photos and crawling around and whatever. That's why I use it more. Yeah, they help if you fall off. But I've touched wood, I've managed to avoid any kind of significant injuries falling off. It's more just off the bike doing stuff.
But I would definitely recommend elbow and knee protection, just because even if you do have a really slow speed fall off, it's quite easy to whack something on a rock and it's really blooming painful. You might not break anything, but having that stops any horrible pain.
And shoulder pads as well. But then again, if you've got a force field or whatever all in one suit, then it's got back, shoulders, chest and elbows.
I wear a force field thing, which, as you say, it's got chest, back, shoulder and elbow. And they're quite nice because they fit like a base layer, but it's got that soft armour in that when it gets warm, it kind of molds to your body. So you kind of almost forget you've got them on.
However, if you put the chest armour in upside down and then look at a photograph of yourself afterwards, it looks like you've been eating way too many pies.
I don't need a body armour to do that. Noel, you have a slightly different view, perhaps, coming back to your just different approach to risk, shall we say?
Very cavalier attitude to this kind of thing. Road riding, I'll wear knee pads most of the time. Again, unless I'm by myself going quite slowly. But for trails, I don't know, I often don't wear knee pads at all. The 2 falls I've had since 1986, I've just kind of rolled a little bit. Maybe elbow pads were good for that.
I filmed at least 2 of your falls.
yeah.
So is that the only
Those
time?
Those are the 2 I'm talking about. So yeah, I put elbow pads in, shoulder pads because I look good in shoulder pads. Sometimes put a little bit of
Oh my God.
a little bit of foam for the back. But I'm not great. I don't know. The falls I've had, they're just kind of like I've just tripped and rolled.
So you don't always have a back protector on?
No. I think there might be some foam in a road bike jacket that I've got, but in the linesman jacket, I don't think I've got anything in the back on that. So no, don't. It's just, I do have a cavalier approach to it, but I like to sort of feel as light as possible. When I put knees in off-road pants, it feels a bit restrictive, knee pads. And like I said, the falls I've had, I haven't really missed it.
Paul, what do you do?
If I'm riding on the road, I will, and I chuck a leather jacket on, I'll probably stick a back protector on underneath it as well, 9 times out of 10. And a lot of my riding kit, well, it's riding specific, so it's either got armour in it already, or just like you, I've got a force field jobby for trail riding. So yeah, I've always got an element of protection.
Greg, you're force field as well, aren't you?
Well, all the adventure spec gear comes with force field level 2 armor in it.
Force field have really cornered the market, haven't they? And what we need is another company to come along and come up with a better option.
Well, there are other options out there. There's the more traditional sort of motocross plastic stuff, isn't there? And then there's the Nox do something as well.
Nox will do it, D3O do it.
Alpine Stars make some big chunky solid plastic stuff, or they used to, but that gets really sweaty, the hard plastic stuff, doesn't it?
You've never been on a ride and afterwards thought, I probably didn't need that.
Well, every time you don't fall off, you don't need it, do you?
Adam's been on a ride and halfway through the ride decided he didn't need it and just put it in the bin.
Looking for the appropriate recycling bin.
Presumably you took it straight out, Noel, and put it on eBay. One of the questions I was asked recently is, can I wear my road jacket and trousers, or should I get something specific for trail riding? And my response was, your traditional bike gear will be fine most of the time, but it's just going to be, it's too bulky, it's too hot for most of the occasions. Because when you're on the road, you need something that's going to be warm. But even in winter, bulky bike gear, you can actually overheat. It's quite nice to have on the ride home, but it is too warm when you're trail riding normally. Hence why Adventure Spec invented their amazing layering system products.
I don't know that we invented it per se. People have been doing it for a long time in a lot of the stuff I talk about. The alpine community and the mountain climbers have been doing it for ages, but it's just this idea of only wear what you need when you wear it. Only wear what you need. When you need it. I don't remember my own stuff.
It needs some work. It needs a little bit of work.
Traditionally, there were suits that were all-in-one suits that did everything. But actually, if it's not raining, why sweat into a heavy waterproof outfit? So that's kind of our approach, is to just layer it up. The upside is that it's far more comfortable, but the downside is that you have to stop more often. So if you had an all-in-one outfit, you can ride along really smug. Oh, it started raining and I'm totally fine. Whereas if in the approach that we have, if it starts raining, you stop and you put your waterproof gear on. That's kind of the small price to pay for long-term comfort, really. But, each to their own. If you were on a GS just touring through Scandinavia and the weather wasn't going to change that much, and you're just riding on the bike and you're not getting physically hot and exerting yourself because you're kind of doing harder trails, then maybe an all-in-one style suit is fine for you. But as we know, you stop, you get off the bike, you cool down, you heat up, you generate a lot of body heat and body temperature, kind of lifting the bike up and all that kind of stuff. So you have a different need as a trail adventure rider.
So the other thing that a lot of people wear is motocross kit.
It's very colourful, but it's not actually that protective or functional, is it?
But the wider thing here is that people wear motocross kit because they're riding motocross style bikes, because they don't want to go around a racetrack, but they want to ride that bike, and so they get the gear to go with it. And that's a bigger conversation about kind of what's helpful for trail riding or not helpful for trail riding. Now, I'm not here painting everyone the same brush, saying that, because you're wearing bright colored gear means you're going to be going fast. You might be going 20 miles an hour and just kind of pottering around, but you're wearing all that gear because you want the full picture. You want to be on the bike and the matching gear and all the rest of it.
Well, I was going to say, I hate that gear, but people who wear it would probably argue that it's very functional for the kind of riding they're doing. It's often a cooler sort of top, isn't it?
Certainly on a warm day, yeah.
I'm just going to have to take something out of the Rayburn.
It's like having race numbers. If you've done an enduro at the weekend, the advice is always take the numbers off the race number plates on your bike if you're going trail riding, because otherwise it looks like you're a racer. To the uninitiated who might be walking the dog or riding the horse, makes you look faster.
But it's also like a sports bike rider wearing matching coloured leathers to their bike or whatever, where actually you could get on your sports bike and be in something far more toned down. Do you know what I mean? Just people want to.
There's an element of fashion as well, isn't it? And I just don't find motocross gear very. It's got a very narrow window of opportunity. It only works in one set of conditions, and that's when it's hot and dry. I live in Wales, so it's rarely hot or dry.
I think people should wear pretty much what they want, but yeah, I don't wear motocross kit anymore. I used to, when I used to want to be David Knight, but I don't anymore.
Yeah, I was more Dave Thorpe. I grew up with him on my bedroom wall.
So the other thing that people quite often wear is ex-Army Gore-Tex, which can be had fairly cheaply. I've not had great experience with it. I've never found. I mean, Gore-Tex is superb, but the ex-Army stuff isn't always waterproof anymore, I've found. But it is cheap, and it's certainly better than nothing.
I've got a set of Army Gore-Tex over trousers, and they are perfect. They were £10. The zips go from the hips to the ankles, so you can get them on and off over a massive pair of boots, no problem. They obviously hadn't been worn very much before I got hold of them, so they're still waterproof. And I think, but I've also got an Army Gore-Tex jacket, and that's not waterproof anymore. But I haven't treated it in the however many years I've owned it, so that's probably why.
I think I used Army surplus stuff when I started trail riding. It was just kind of getting my gear going. Like you say, it's fine. It's like if it's going to get ripped, you're not going to cry about it and all the rest of it. But I do think that once you get into kind of going on longer trips and multi-day trips and stuff like that, it's worth. You can sit there and be really happy with how little you spent next to someone who is really happy because they're actually feeling very comfortable after 2, 3, 4 days on the bike because their kit is doing what it's meant to do. And it fits well, and all the other stuff that the Army Gore-Tex stuff or the Army surplus stuff possibly isn't going to do. But it depends, you know. If you don't have the money to invest in kind of quality kit, then yeah, if it keeps you dry but doesn't quite fit right, so be it, you know.
Let me just talk through what I wear on the trails, and I mean, it's basically the adventure spec stuff because we get a very good deal through being in Greg's films and adventure spec look after us. So base layer, and it's a base layer that works in the cold and the warm. On top of that, you wear your armoured layer, the force field one in my case. So you can then go from that either straight to a jacket, or you can go for a warmer layer, whether it's a fleece or something a little bit more robust. And then in your bag, you'll have a waterproof layer if it starts to rain. So it's base layer, armour, warm layer, jacket. God, that's a lot of layers, isn't it? That's 5 layers, including the waterproof layer. But obviously, depending on the weather, you don't need them all the time. You may just go out in your body armour and a jacket on top.
I always opt for a merino base layer. In fact, I'm wearing one now. I wear one more than half of the year because, like you said, they work in the hot and they work in the heat and in the cold, and they don't stink after a week of touring, and they dry pretty quickly, and they're comfortable. And I've even been known to buy merino underpants.
Merino is great. It's true. I've got merino as well.
A merino buff and a merino hat.
Merino cravat. Yeah, so base layer, mid layer, outer layer, waterproof layer, and traditionally your armor would be in your outer layer, but or you can wear it in your base layer.
I think having your armour in your base layer gives you a little bit more choice because you can actually take your jacket off if it gets really warm and potentially just ride in your armoured layer then. Well,
and the armour stays where it's meant to be on your body. That's the whole point, isn't it? That it's not moving around in a looser outer layer.
Right, that's the end of the first part of the kit special. Join us next week for part 2, when hopefully we'll find out what Noel actually meant by ensuite facilities. I have my suspicions. See you then, kids. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, Please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.